Could the next great LSU quarterback be on campus this weekend? It's a name you need to know, and we'll tell you about him next. Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked On LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked On LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. And as always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. So thank you for that. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We're talking Cruton, y'all. Now, normally our buddy Shea Dixon from On3 the Bengal Tiger is here, but Shea is up in Nashville at an On3 recruiting event. So Jerit Roser of On3 pinch hit. Man, it was a good time to have Jerit here because LSU's doling out offers for the class of 2026. They got a massive junior day coming up this weekend for the 2026 prospects on campus. Some giant names will be there. We'll tell you who we need to know. But a couple of 2027 prospects are going to be on LSU's campus. And they're notable because they're quarterbacks from Louisiana, and quarterbacks who might very well end up being the top quarterbacks in the country for the 2027 class. Now, I understand, so I'll pause you here if you're not familiar. We're talking class of 2027. That means those are guys that just finished their sophomore season in high school. In the fall, they'll be high school juniors. So you were still talking about 2 more years before they can sign with LSU or whatever school they ultimately land on. But when we're talking about prospects of this caliber, you're talking about guys who in their freshman and sophomore years of high school are already getting major national attention. Now, we've talked a good bit here about Elijah Haven from the Dunham School in Baton Rouge. And Haven made some news this week with an NIL deal. I'm going to talk about that here in just a quick second. But while Elijah Haven is one that we will certainly watch for the next 2 years, Haven is, according to On3 and 24/7, the number 1 quarterback prospect in the country. 24/7 ranks Elijah Haven right now is the number 1 overall prospect in the country. He, in the composite, Rivals has as the number 2, and On3 has as the number 10 prospect. So in the composite, he is the number 3 overall player, the number 1 quarterback, and the number 1 player in the state of Louisiana. Elijah Haven, 6'4", 205 from the Dunham School. But Elijah Haven apparently is going to have competition, not only at quarterback nationally, but in the state of Louisiana. Because Peyton Houston is now skyrocketing up scouting boards. Peyton Houston is 5'10", 180. He's out of Evangel in North Louisiana. And as a sophomore, Houston threw for 4,480 yards with 38 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He completed 70% of his passes. Let that sink in. 70% completion, 4,480 yards, 38 touchdowns, and just 6 interceptions as a high school sophomore. Naturally, the who's who of college football have taken notice. He's got an offer from LSU, but also Georgia, Miami, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas A&M. Yes, he's got offers from darn near everybody, and he's getting bigger. He was listed by On3 at 5'10", 180. He is now listed at 6', 195. So you've got a young guy that's growing into his body and is already putting up eye-popping statistics as a high school sophomore. Well, turns out that Peyton Houston, who they call Pop, will be in Baton Rouge for the Junior Day event coming up this weekend. And I had a chance to talk to Jerit Roser about both Pop, Peyton Houston, a.k.a. Pop, and Elijah Haven, 2 prospects that are leading the charge in what could be the best quarterback class in Louisiana high school history.
Yeah, these two guys are both phenomenal. I mean, as much as you could expect from a sophomore quarterback in high school, they're both showcasing it. And I've been watching videos of Pop since I think he was 6 or 7 years old, because I knew his dad, Sean, through Devin White's recruitment. They're close. I don't remember if they're family, just close family friends, but I'd kind of known about Pop growing up even when Devin White was coming through LSU. And every step of the way, he has checked every box, particularly as he got to the high school level and hit a growth spurt and started pushing up toward 6 foot or so. But just, I mean, a kid that has a really high football IQ and is really polished at this point in his development for a young passer. Watching him, whether it be at Evangel or as much as I've spent time with him on the 7-on-7 scene, the way he can kind of manipulate some things and look guys off at this point as a young guy is really impressive. And then obviously, a rocket arm and some athleticism to him to be able to make a lot of plays with his legs that at times this fall he really had to, because Evangel was kind of struggling up front at points. But folks remember, I imagine, seeing that 800-yard passing game against Captain Shreve during the season. And that was a point where a lot of guys that were transferring in to want to play with him were still kind of just getting eligible. And so the team and Pop, with those guys around him, gained some steam late in the season, won a playoff game, and all those things. But if you've been excited watching Elijah Haven at this point in his development for local folks in Baton Rouge, Pop is right there with him. And there's some good depth in the 27 class in state as well. We look at that 23 class with Arch and Eli Holstein and Ricky Collins and all those guys, and I think this 27 class is kind of in that sort of framework with some fantastic top-end guys.
Boy, that is high praise. He didn't even mention Malachi Ziegler as well. Malachi Ziegler out of Benton, another top 50 overall prospect in the country. He right now is the number 3 player in Louisiana for 2027 behind Elijah Haven and Ahmad Hudson. I get it. We're talking 2027. We're talking a long, long ways down the line. But the reason this is so significant is Bryce Underwood. Now, I understand people are going to recoil, but follow me here. Follow me. Bryce Underwood was supposed to be your answer after Nussmeier. So remember, you've got Nussmeier back in 2025. It was supposed to be Nussmeier, probably Colin Hurley, and Bryce Underwood. And after Nuss left, we were all assuming that for at least 2026 and 2027, that was going to be Bryce Underwood. Possibly 2028, knows. But those 2 years were going to be Bryce Underwood, 26, 27. And then maybe you bring in Elijah Haven or Malachi Ziegler or Peyton Houston in 2027. And they sit for a year behind Underwood, and then they become the guy like Underwood did in 2028. And so then they're there for 28, 29. So in theory, the next half decade of quarterback play was supposed to be taken care of. But now after Nussmeier, you got a giant question. Is it Michael Van Buren? Does Colin Hurley stick around? You didn't sign a high school quarterback in this class, so you had to go get Van Buren. And what if one or both of those guys leaves here in the next 2 years? Could. What do? You could always go into the portal and you could find those one-year stopgaps. Notre Dame's done it each of the last 3 years. Kentucky's done it. Plenty of teams have done it. LSU's had success getting quarterbacks out of the portal. I mean, you got Joe Burrow and Jay Daniels as transfers. But you must knock it out of the park with one of those in-state elite level dudes for the class of 2027, and preferably whichever one you're not going to get multiple, but you're going to get one of them. And preferably it's whichever one you want. Might be Elijah Haven, might be Malachi Ziegler. Don't sleep on Peyton Houston. Guy's already thrown for nearly 5,000 yards as a high school sophomore. Got a lot of time to talk about those guys, but file it away. And remember, Houston will be on campus this weekend for LSU's Junior Day. Speaking of which, what other elite prospects are going to be on campus for Junior Day? And what about that Elijah Haven NIL deal with Matt Bowers? We'll talk about it next. Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Y'all, attending NFL playoff games is an experience like no other. The energy, the excitement, the connection with the other fans, it's unmatched. Yeah, I can remember not one of the first dates, but my wife and I just started dating in 2009, and the Saints, of course, won the Super Bowl. We were at the divisional round playoff game against the Arizona Cardinals on a Saturday afternoon in the Dome. Memory I'll never forget. And this year, Game Time is making it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff. It shows you only the best deals on great seats so you can focus on what matters, being there. Use Game Time Picks for any upcoming playoff game. It could not be easier. You want to be at Super Bowl 59, there at the big game, I should say. You can find a super deal that'll give you incredible value for amazing seats. You could preview the seat from your spot before buying. The all-in pricing is a game changer, so there's no surprise fees at checkout. Plus, knowing your tickets are backed by the Game Time guarantee will give you complete peace of mind. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem with the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So the big news over the weekend, as it pertains to these future quarterbacks, is the NIL deal that Matt Bowers did with Elijah Haven. And a lot of LSU fans kind of went, when they saw this, because Matt Bowers, who owns about a dozen car dealerships in the New Orleans area and is pretty prominent. After the Nola no call, Matt Bowers is the one that started that billboard campaign both in New Orleans and Atlanta, where the Super Bowl was, talking about how the NFL blew it, Saints got robbed. And he's very forward-facing. Look, Alvin Kamara did an interview after his house was for sale, and people were asking Kamara, and me was asking Kamara about his house being for sale. I said, no big deal. I was able to flip it, made some money on it. Besides, Matt Bowers told me that I could go stay at his house. So, and the point is, this is a pretty prominent businessman who's doing this deal, but he's also an Ole Miss fan, which made a lot of LSU fans a little leery that maybe here with a high school sophomore, Matt Bowers is trying to work his way in with Elijah Haven early in his career. The bottom line is, no matter what, if it's Ole Miss or Alabama or Texas or Southern Cal or Michigan or anybody, LSU is going to have a fight on their hands for Elijah Haven. I mean, he is a 6'4", 205-pound high school sophomore that is mature beyond his years. He's got all the physical ability, both in football and in basketball. He's a smart kid who makes great grades at the Dunham School. I mean, he is the total package. He's as mature a high school athlete as I have ever talked to. Everybody is going to be all in on Elijah Haven until the very end of this process. So, you learned a valuable lesson with Bryce Underwood, which is don't put all your eggs in one basket, but recruit like heck and understand what all it is going to take, to get to the finish line with a guy like Elijah Haven. Now, for whatever it's worth, I did ask Jerit Roser in our conversation about the Matt Bowers deal, but he started this conversation, this answer, by talking a little bit about NIL, and I phrased it as to say, of course, NIL, as we know it now, might be coming to an end. Rev share is coming. So I said, are you seeing any changes and differences in the recruiting process because of NIL right now, because of the changes that is coming? And then he followed up with an answer about Elijah Haven and the Matt Bowers situation.
So much is just so chaotic and almost Wild West right now that, like we've seen with other instances with the NCAA in recent years, big changes happen before people have the details really figured out. And so there's a lot of suddenly, okay, this Pandora's box or that Pandora's box is open, and now let's figure out what the kind of adjustment or guardrails are to that. And so that's kind of where a lot seems to be with NIL and a look to the rev sharing era seemingly ahead, that it will kind of bring some form of clarity, a step in the right direction in that regard to what has been so tough to kind of keep a handle on thus far. I think for Elijah's new deal with Matt Bowers Auto Group, my biggest reaction is just awesome for Elijah, a good kid who looks like he's got a nice opportunity that's going to involve some money coming to the family for his fantastic talent and personality and character and all those things. But I'm not blinking a whole lot of an eye at some of these beyond that. Just, good opportunities for the kids. I know each one, there's kind of a thought for some fans of, okay, what program might be more tied to this organization. Like I saw reports of Matt Bowers being an Ole Miss alum,
right,
and what that could mean. Is this going to be a Bryce Underwood concern? And, you're going to have to battle the finances of another program. And realistically, regardless of who the company is or what the program is for a top quarterback in college recruiting right now, you're going to have to play that game to a notable degree. So that's going to be part of the norm right now, even if it kind of shapes a little bit.
It is a long way away for 2027, but these are conversations about Elijah Haven that we're going to have for the next 2 years, because you have one of the best prospects, arguably the best prospect in the country, in your own backyard. In the LSU Michigan Bryce Underwood saga, it's a reverse, where you're the school with the kid in your backyard. What can you do to keep him? I will continue to follow that, of course. Now, we mentioned Peyton Houston will be on campus for that junior day this weekend. And it is a massive guest list as LSU is ramping up the intensity. Remember, 2026 is massive. The more we talk about this until we get to next December, we talk about this 2026 signing class. The state of Louisiana, it's one of those years, you have it about once every decade or so where you have a bumper crop. And Louisiana for 2026, remember, this was supposed to include also Jakeem Stewart, who reclassified now in 2025 and is at USC. But 26 was supposed to include Jakeem Stewart as well. But you got 6 guys in the top 80 nationally for 2026. So this junior day guest list, landing the best players in Louisiana for 2026 is absolutely imperative. Here's Jerit Roser on who you can expect on campus for junior day.
Yeah, most of those in-state offer guys sound like they're going to be in attendance. I know, for us over at On 3, Steve Wolfong put together a list of some of the top names to know that we know currently are heading to Baton Rouge, and it's some familiar ones in Blaine Bradford from Catholic High, Jabari Mack from Destrehan, Dylan Berryman from Ouachita, Darius McKinley, Dominic's younger brother out of Acadiana, Lamar Brown from U-High, Ahmad Hudson from Ruston, Peyton Houston from Evangel, and that list kind of goes on. And there will be certainly a good number of out-of-state guys coming in as well. But this is a huge event to kind of kickstart the new year as more of the attention starts to focus on this 26 cycle now, as well as some of the truly elite 27 guys. This is an opportunity outside of the game day festivities to get a huge number of top prospects together and kind of roll out the full red carpet to these guys, get them together, get them some one-on-one time in some cases with some of the coaches. And we've seen in the past some commitment certainly come out of junior day. It's kind of part of the expectation is maybe some of these relationships that have been longstanding, like those guys that I mentioned. This is the time where you kind of sew it up and they become a part of that.
Remember, when you look at 2026, LSU and the players in Louisiana, Richard Anderson, Aiden Hall, Kenny Darby, Ja'Kai Anderson, Jalen Chapman, already committed for the class of 2026. The number 1 player in the state, Lamar Brown, thought to be a heavy lean to LSU. The number 2 player in the state, Blaine Bradford, thought to be a heavy lean to LSU. The number 5 player in the state, Bryson Martinez, thought to be a heavy lean to LSU. Jabari Mack, heavy lean to LSU. Dylan Berryman, the defensive lineman who you heard Jerit mention there, heavy lean to LSU. Darius McKinley, Dominic's brother. These are all top 8 players in the state. And then Darby and Ja'Kai Anderson are 9-10. They're already committed. LSU, I'm not saying for certain LSU is going to sweep the top 10 players in the state. But if you sweep the top 10 players in the state, you're going to have the number 1 class in America. It's that simple. Because when we're talking about the top 10 players in the state, their overall ranking, you're talking about, the the number 11, 14, 34, 38, 52, 79, 234, 238, 249, 272. That's the top 10 players in the state. I mean, it's pretty incredible to see right now the depth and top-level talent in the state for 2026. And if you get them all, you're going to have the best class in America. Okay. Speaking of the class of 2026, we all know the big names in state. But this week, the LSU staff has been on the road recruiting, and they have been slinging offers to top-tier out-of-state prospects. Jerit Roser gives us a recap of that as we continue. Locked on LSU, your team every day. So 2026 recruiting getting in full swing. Dead periods lifted. Coaches are out on the road. If you follow any of the recruiting guys on Twitter, you're seeing them just hammering retweets. Coaches are all over the place, sharing pictures with elite prospects all over the country. Brian Kelly and his staff are everywhere and have been all week, and they've been handing out offers for 2026 to the out-of-state guys. So I asked Jerit, who, if you go follow Jerit Roser on Twitter, you will see he is just hammering retweet on all these prospects that are getting visits and offers from LSU coaches. So this is a long clip now, okay? This is about 3 minutes. Jerit first talks about some of those names, and then I ask a follow-up there as well about where they are in the process. So you'll hear it, but here's an update on the 2026 class from Jerit.
Yeah, it's been crazy. It's been 2 or 3 dozen probably just in the last week out-of-state guys. The coaches are all over the place, all over the Southeast. Offers from Texas up to North Carolina and really everywhere in between. I had a chance to talk to Corey Wells last night, a defensive tackle from Petal, Mississippi, that Bo Davis just offered on Friday. And the Tigers seem like they're in a nice position starting out with his exploding recruitment right now with 7 offers in the past 10 days for him, 5 of them being SECs. Had a couple of IMG guys that were on campus this past weekend, and Brett Collier and Jay Cruel, 2026 guys from IMG on the defensive side of the ball. So those are guys to certainly know. Muscle Shoals, Alabama edge rusher Kamarion Johnson. And the list kind of keeps going on. Zion Robinson, a speedy Mansfield, Texas receiver. Myson Johnson Cook, a 5-star 2027 kid out of DeSoto, Texas, picked up one this morning. And so it's been all over the map. The Tigers coaches are kind of eating up the frequent flyer miles.
Yeah, Shay. Excuse me, Shay. We'll have Sire. Jerit, give me a sense of the process. So obviously you got to offer before you can take a commitment. So they're doing, as you mentioned, 2 to 3 dozen offers in the last week or so. Where does this mean LSU is in the process with these guys? Like what's the next step in all their recruitment?
Sure. And I think it's important for people to know that it kind of varies some between in-state guys and out-of-state guys as well, which is part of why you're seeing the active offers going out right now to all these out-of-state guys for the LSU coaches, while there are only, I think, 11 2026 Louisiana guys that currently hold LSU offers, and only 4 2027 guys in the state that hold those offers. Meanwhile, you're seeing some of the out-of-state programs light up my Twitter feed with offers for some of the Louisiana guys. And I think for out-of-state guys, the offers can kind of have varying significance. In some cases, it's really, hey, we're very interested in you at this point, but get to camp and show it in person in a couple months when things open up for that in June. In some cases, it maybe holds a little bit more stock, but part of the reason why you don't see as many in-state offers going out just yet is because a lot of times the programs try to be a little bit more patient and selective with those in-state offers because they know kind of the relationship dynamics that are there. And if you offer an in-state guy, they might be that much more likely to want to commit that much more quickly. And if you don't have that spot for the guy down the stretch, then it kind of burns some local bridges. And so there's a lot of dynamics going on with what any of these offers means going out to these guys.
It's a fascinating conversation always when we talk recruiting and what I hope this serves to do. While it's, I mean, the the ink is barely dry on the paper for the 2025 class, which just signed in December. And there's still a February signing day coming up here in a few weeks. But what I hope this does is to illustrate just how much work and how long tail the recruiting process is for prospects, as we're even talking here about 2027 prospects where the recruiting process is getting hot and heavy. But just know this: 2026 is a major class in Louisiana. You might get some commits out of Junior Day this weekend, and 2027 will be a massive, maybe the best quarterback year in Louisiana ever. Never boring when it comes to recruiting. And we'll be here talking about it. Locked on LSU. All right, that'll do it for us today. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. Now for your second listen, how about you go check out my guy Chris Gordy, Locked on SEC YouTube podcast. You can get it there. Of course, if you're listening to us on podcast, thank you so much. Please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.